Welcome to the show. I'm Jason Whitlock, and I'll tell you why this weekend could quiet all the Tomlin haters.
And I'm Colin Cowherd. I'm one of them. I'll tell you why Aaron Rodgers getting hurt might actually end up helping the Green Bay Packers. Speak for yourself on a Thursday starts now.
All right, hello and welcome. We're joined today by Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson and Fox NFL analyst Mark Schlereth. Let's start in Green Bay, where Aaron Rodgers is busy getting ready for his return this Sunday against the Panthers. While Brett Hundley did enough to keep the Packers in the hunt, they still need some magic out of Rodgers to have any shot at making the postseason, though the quarterback says he's no savior.
I'm not coming back to save this team. I'm coming back to play quarterback the way I know how to play it, and hopefully we all raise the level of our play collectively and find a way to win these 3 games. I feel confident I'll be able to go out there and play the way I've always played, but yeah, I've been off for 7 games and been out for a while. So it's going to take getting out there, getting that first pass in, that first hit, and then I'll probably settle in.
Cowherd, do you expect to see a rusty Aaron Rodgers this weekend?
Yeah, and a rusty Aaron Rodgers is better than 90% of the league. That's really how I think his ultimate greatness is, that he will not be when Tom Brady's timing was off on Monday Night Football, Tom wasn't very good. When Aaron's timing's a little off, he's still the jazz musician. He can make plays with his feet. He can go off sheet. He can ad lib. And I think they're going to go into Carolina and win. I think he's a great December quarterback. I think he's a great fourth quarter quarterback. 2 things Cam has not been great at. And I think the ultimate value of Aaron Rodgers is that he will not be 100% physically, and he will not be 100% in efficiency, but he is still capable, despite those 2 things, of going in and beating a playoff team, and I think he will.
I love his mentality. I think he's trying to speak to the rest of the team and be respectful to the rest of the team, and also just be smart that it's going to take everybody. It's not, hey, Aaron Rodgers shows up and magically we're a playoff team, we're going to throw our helmets out there and beat the Panthers. But if there is any rust, I think it'll be gone by the first quarter. And the game's going to get decided in the second half anyway. And so I expect to see the magical Aaron Rodgers we've been seeing the last decade at some point on Sunday. I, like you, think they're going to beat the Carolina Panthers. And I think they're going to beat the Carolina Panthers because Aaron Rodgers is going to do what Aaron Rodgers does, which is special stuff when the game really matters.
Well, let's talk about being on rhythm, because I think it's really important when you talk about offensive football to be on rhythm. When Brady, as you mentioned, is struggling with rhythm, and they don't have Gronkowski controlling the middle of the field, and you're not getting it to your backs like you do normally and efficiently, what do you rely on? What's your fallback? You don't have one because you're a pure pocket guy. You're not going to scramble around. See, 70% of offense is played on schedule, meaning my quarterback's going to drop back 70% of the time. He's going to be, the ball's going to come out on time. That's on schedule football. 30% is off schedule. The 30% is where you improvise, where you make things up. If you're out of rhythm as a quarterback and you have that athletic ability, you can flip the script. You can be 70% off schedule until you find your rhythm, because he's athletic enough to make those things happen. That is Aaron Rodgers. That's the beauty of Aaron Rodgers. He wants to be in that 70%. I'm in rhythm. I'm on schedule. I'm on time. But if he's not, because he's a little bit rusty, he can manipulate that. He can manipulate that formula and be incredibly effective. As a matter of fact, he can be more effective at times doing that. And when he gets that rhythm, he can roll right back into that 70-30 breakdown that I talked about. That's so important to keep your quarterback healthy and keep him on schedule. Plus the fact that they're running the ball right now. They've got 2 young running backs that have actually picked up that aspect of the Packers offense. I'm with you. I think they have a great chance of running the table and getting into this playoffs.
Well, Aaron Rodgers said it best, when I get out there and get that hit. And that's what football is all about. I think any player, I don't care what position you play, running back, quarterback, offensive lineman, once you get that hit, you're like, or that pass, you're like, okay, now I'm feeling it. And I think he's that kind of player that once he gets into it, I don't think he'll be rusty. I think he'll fall right back to where he was when he started, barring that he gets hurt, anything like that. Do I think they'll beat the Carolina Panthers? No. I think Carolina's defense will step up against Aaron Rodgers. I just don't think that they have enough weapons. Yeah, they've been able to run the ball the last couple of weeks, but who they played? I think they're playing against a very good Carolina defense, a team that I think is sneaky. It's kind of going to probably sneak in and going to cause people a lot of trouble in the playoffs. But Aaron Rodgers, I think, is going to always be Aaron Rodgers.
I love your point about that first hit. And, I was blessed to play on some really good teams that kind of drug guys like me to the Super Bowl. But you always had those 2 weeks, that 2 week just time off where, you know, you've got the bye week and then you play. And always talked about, let's just get out there and get that first hit in. Once you got that first hit, doesn't matter what the play is, just give me one to get off. Give me one running play, right? I just want, whatever it is, let me just hit. And once you got that first hit in, you know what happened? It's just a football game. Like any other football game you've ever played in your entire life. But it was getting to that moment. So for Aaron, is he going to be anxious? Yeah, he hasn't played in, what, 7-8 weeks. He's going to be anxious, but once you get it in, man, you just fall back into that rhythm that you've always fallen into.
Your son's a Major League Baseball pitcher, has been for years. Pitchers and quarterbacks, we see arms. They're mostly driven by legs. Aaron's got the freshest legs of his career in Week 15. Hasn't taken a hit.
Carolina's going to test him. They get after the quarterback.
And yeah, Carolina, I think, blitzes. Greg Cosell told me today, more than any team in the league, their blitz percentage. I think you're going to see fresh legs. I think he's going to be rusty initially, but Aaron's rust is better than most people's polish.
Hi guys, Colin Cowherd here. Before the show moves along, I wanted to tell you that Speak for Yourself is brought to you by Freshly. Freshly delivers fully cooked, prepared meals straight to your door. No more coming home, wondering what's for dinner, because Freshly's team of chefs and nutritionists are here to save the day. Skip the shopping, chopping, and cleanup. Boom, it's yours. They're fully cooked. All you have to do, heat them up. Each meal ready in only 3 minutes. Delivery and takeout, hit and miss. You know that. Sometimes it comes cold. Why run the risk? How about guaranteed quality meals from Freshly? Easy, no dishes to worry about. Freshly's menu has it all. Sicilian-style chicken parm, Mediterranean shrimp bowl, sweet and sour chicken. These meals are restaurant quality. To try Freshly out, go to freshly.com/Fox Sports to get $20 off your first week. That's 6 meals for just $39 plus free shipping. This offer's only valid for a limited time. Go to freshly.com/Fox Sports. $20 off, free shipping. That's pretty good. Consider dinner done with Freshly. Now let's get back to the show.
To Pittsburgh, where the Steelers host the Patriots Sunday. This is a great game, a matchup that really is going to decide the home field in the AFC. Way back in Week 12, Mike Tomlin admitted he was already looking ahead of this game, which earned him some serious criticism. Even still, Tomlin, who's 2-6 all-time against the Patriots, couldn't hide his excitement about the matchup yesterday.
It's good to be in the kitchen. The kitchen's in Pittsburgh, PA, this week in the National Football League, and at Heinz Field. And that's where you want to be in the middle of December. So we don't take it for granted. It's good to be in big games. It's better to be in big games than ones that nobody's watching. You know, we better be appreciative of this spot and not resist it in any way, but embrace it, because this is what we've been fighting for since March. You know, to be in these type games against these type people, why would you fight that? It's an awesome thing.
He is so good at the podium. Whitlock, would a victory over New England quiet Mike's critics?
Well, that's a backhanded compliment, good at the podium. And you and I both have been critical of Mike Tomlin, and they're 11-2 with a chance to knock off the Patriots and really kind of wrap up home field advantage. Jacksonville's a possibility, and things could go crazy. But if they win this game, they've probably locked up home field advantage. And that's a great advantage if they happen to see New England or anybody again, if it comes through Pittsburgh. And so I just think for me and for you, if he gets it done this Sunday and somehow they get home field advantage and they take advantage of this big game, we're going to have to tone down our criticism a little bit. He does more than just be good at the podium.
I didn't say he was just good at the podium. He's the best in the league ever at the podium. I think New England and Pittsburgh, the ultimate compliment I can give them, they're the Yankees. They're the Red Sox. We don't judge this history on regular season stuff. These are empirical empires. The Patriots and Pittsburgh, 50 years from now, you're not going to judge John Elway in Week 11. You're judging Elway in the playoffs. You're going to look at Brady, Belichick, Tomlin, and you're going to put them in this big mountaintop and say they were good then, good then, good then. Nobody's going to remember this game. Nobody's going to remember this game by January.
If it locks up home field advantage,
and
that leads to Pittsburgh getting to the Super Bowl,
well, that's
this
different.
game's significant.
That means they're 2-0 against him. Yeah. But if it locks up home field and Belichick beats him in Heinz, this game means nothing.
Yeah. See, just where I'm at. Will it shut up his critics? Nope. Because his critics will say, yeah, it's a regular season game. What's going to happen when they meet in the playoffs? That's what it's going to come down to. To shut up the critics, you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to win an AFC. Was it quiet, the critics?
Quiet.
Oh, I
Just
said shut up.
Tone it down.
Okay. No, it won't. Because the critics will still be, yeah, regular season game, doesn't matter. Let's see what happens in the AFC Championship. That's what they'll be. You know how critics are. Critics just want an excuse to be critical. That's, you know, hey, the game, like, opinions are easy, right? Opinions that's a cakewalk. Decisions are hard, right? Going out and doing it, that's hard. Critics are that's easy. They'll be critics. They won't shut up.
You're right. And I think then they'll say, well, if they didn't play in New England, so that's why they won, you know.
Let me give you a tougher question. Let's turn the wood. Should it quiet the critics?
Like you said, it's a regular season game. So it's either you like Mike Tomlin or you don't. That's what it really comes down to. Critics going to be critical no matter what. You know, and I give you credit. You just said that we need to tone it down because you two guys were critical.
No,
Y'all were. And I give you credit for that, especially you. And I like him because what did I say? He wins. They win. They've had a winning season. People are like, I don't like the way they play. You know, they 7-2, but they don't play like I like. They win. That's all it comes down to. Man, now can they go and win the big one? And the big one is getting to the playoffs and winning the Super Bowl.
Listen, I'm critical of Mike because I think he's a lot like Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is heavy on emotion. That's why Tomlin and Pete's teams are so great at home, average on the road because you unplug the emotion. I like Dungy. I like Belichick. I like Gibbs. Quieter, a more academic approach, more schematic driven. Mike's not that. Pete's not that. But the one thing I have to say about Tomlin, those two separate cultures, Seattle and Pittsburgh, win their division, win games, and win Super Bowls. It's not what I prefer. And I always try to preface my criticism of Tomlin. Listen, there's more than one way to win. One way to win. Tony Dungy had to interview 3 times for the Buccaneers job. I was working in the area, and Rich McKay said, you go to dinner with him, you have to lean in because he's so quiet. And he goes, I grew up on Parcells and coaches yell. He goes, we interviewed Tony 3 times. He was the most qualified candidate. So I like Tony Dungy, Belichick, Andy Reid. Pete drives me nuts. Tomlin drives me nuts. That's more on me than them.
I want to see, though, what I want to see is I want to see you change up what you do. And there's this, you know, philosophy, and I played on a lot of teams that said, we're going to dictate to you guys. We do what we do. We'll run 6 plays. We'll run different personnel groups. We'll run some different motions. We'll disguise it, throw some window dressing on there, but we're going to do what we do. Well, the last 4 games, that's Pittsburgh's approach to New England, and they've been eviscerated by Tom Brady in that offense. They sit back in zone almost 100% of the time, and he finds the voids in that zone, and he just rips them apart. And so you're going to have to basically, in my mind, to really get the credit you deserve, to go off script and to do something you've never done before. And I'll go back to 2015 because you look at Wade Phillips as a defensive coordinator. The criticism of Wade, he's going to line up in just base, going to play man throughout the whole entirety of the game, and he's going to say this is good enough to beat you. In that 2015 championship game between Denver and between New England, he completely went off script. And they attacked Tom Brady. They hit him 24 times, I believe, 4 sacks, and they end up winning a game they probably shouldn't have won 20-18. And that's what Tomlin's going to have to do to get.
That's such a dangerous scenario. I've seen coaches try to win the game from the sidelines, and it can blow up in your face. I can't remember if did Sean Payton do the onside kick?
Yes. First out of the halftime.
Right. And I hate it when coaches try to do too much. I agree with you. When it works, we love it.
Right.
But sometimes if I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm sitting there, man, I'm 11-2. I got Big Ben. I got the best wide receiver in football. I'm going to do what we do. If he goes out that way, I don't know if I'm going to beat him up for it.
Welcome back, Eric Dickerson, Mark Schlereth here. Let's move to Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, where we'll see a huge showdown between the Rams and Seahawks. Goff, Jared, struggled in the Rams' loss to Seattle earlier this year, but he was even worse in last season's matchup in Seattle, where he got concussed during a blowout, got smoked just a few days after Jeff Fisher got fired. Whitlock, I remember that. Whitlock, Goff's much better this year. Do you think he can handle Seattle, the crowd, the weather, the whole thing?
He's going to be facing a desperate, emotional Seattle team. Seattle made a mess down in Jacksonville during the game, after the game. They have a lot to prove. And Russell Wilson, I was told immediately after the game, like, hey, we're playing for first place next week against the Los Angeles Rams. Let's move on from this. I think Jared Goff can handle it. I think Jared Goff handled Seattle beautifully here in Los Angeles, and Cooper Kupp dropped the game-winning touchdown pass. I'm done. I haven't really seen the Rams play a bad game. I don't think I've seen Jared Goff have a bad stretch of play. I think it's going to be tough in Seattle. I think that crowd's going to be desperate. The team's going to be desperate. Jared Goff will be fine. Not saying they're going to guaranteed win, but Jared Goff will be fine.
Listen, the Rams start 7-2, and since then they've gone 2-2, and the reason being is because post-Thanksgiving football's harder. And he's a young quarterback, and this is his first real playoff football environment. Is he ready for it? I'm not sure anybody in this type of environment, you're ready for it until you're in it. I agree with you. Seattle's defense is beaten up. He's a much better player. He has advanced from rookie year to first games to post-Thanksgiving. I don't think he'll be the reason if they lose, they lose. I'm with you on this. But I will say this. Seattle's brand right now defensively is bigger than reality. It's not the same defense. It's just not. They're missing 2 linebackers. They don't have Cam Chancellor. They don't have Richard Sherman. I think their brand's a little better than reality right now for Seattle's defense.
Here's how I think you attack the Seahawks, especially in Seattle. If you go side to side on them, their team speed on the defensive side of the ball just eats you up. You got to go straight downhill. Do the Rams have the ability to be downhill? And my answer is yeah, absolutely. You look at that game early in the season in Los Angeles, 5 turnovers. The Rams absolutely, I thought, physically dominated that football game as you went back and looked at it. You talked about the Cooper Kupp drop. Jared Goff took them down in a 2-minute drill all the way down the field. Bam, bam, hitting the seam down to the tight end for a big gain. I mean, one after the other after the other. He throws that seam route to Cooper Kupp, and it is, I mean, money. Now, it's a diving throw, but it is money, or diving catch, yeah. And it was perfectly located. That kid did not miss a beat. And so I look at them saying, I think they're ripe for the taking, and I think Los Angeles is a really good football team. And defensively, they've always matched up exceptionally well with the Seahawks.
Always, yeah.
You're right. And one thing I think that the Rams didn't do last time was run the football enough. You know, you have to at least set the run up. They asked Jared Goff, even though we're at home, to throw the ball 47 times against a really good Seahawks defense at that time. And I think it was the 5th week of the season. They were really good. Everybody was healthy. This time they're on the road in Seattle, loud, noisy. You've got to start trying to run the football. Jared Goff, 2 interceptions last time. You can't turn the ball over against Seattle, especially in Seattle. That is a big thing. My only knock on Jared, and I think that he'll do well in this game, is that he holds the ball too long. I'm still saying, get rid of it. You know, you got to get, especially in Seattle, you've got to get rid of it.
Having called one of his games and having talked to some coaches, a lot of them feel, and this is just pretty endemic of any young quarterback, is that if we give him his first read, like from first read to check down, he's outstanding. If we can muddy the waters off that first read and make him go through progressions, then that'll slow him down a little bit. He'll hold the ball a little bit longer. One thing I know about Seattle, they're going to line up in that cover 3 that they play pretty much 95% of the time and say, are you good enough to beat us? I think that bodes well for a Jared Goff.
You count Seattle's injuries in the Rams acquisitions today, Jason. Who has the better roster?
I think the Rams have the better roster. I think the Rams are the better team.
Yep.
And we're avoiding the name that Eric and Mark Schlereth are dancing around. Todd Gurley should decide this game.
Yep.
If they get him going in the running game, they'll be fine.
All right, welcome back. Joined now by Fox NBA analyst Chris Broussard, the founder of the Big League, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to Indianapolis. I watched this game last night. Pretty entertaining. Paul George was terrible in the showdown with his old team last night. Managed to escape with a win anyway, thanks in large part to a big game from the big fella, Whitlock's favorite, Steven Adams. While George and Melo haven't exactly lived up to the hype, OKC is actually 5-1 when Adams scores 19 or more. Whitlock, crazy to think that Steven Adams is OKC's second-best player.
It's not crazy at all. It's the factual and it's the truth. If they were run, if the team were run properly, it would be a Westbrook, Steven Adams team. Melo is well past his prime.
Yes.
And the shine, every time I look at Paul George, is just coming more and more off of him. If I were running this organization, Steve Adams would be my number 2. And it wouldn't be Paul. I wouldn't be messing around with Melo at all, and it wouldn't be Paul George.
You're saying best, second best. How about we change the wording? I think he's arguably the second most valuable, but he's a non-perimeter player in a perimeter league. Isn't Paul George more valuable in the open market than Steven Adams?
I would rather have Steven Adams. I really would. I would rather have the guy. Paul George is overvalued. He's a very good player. He's not what everyone's making him out to be.
What? Hey, Chris Broussard did you just get off the phone with Kevin Pritchard or something?
No.
He told you go at Paul George. This is not crazy. It's insane. We saw when Steven Adams is your second best player, we saw what happens last year. You're mediocre.
Paul
I'm sorry.
George what's the record this year versus last year?
They're having trouble because the pieces don't mix. But to say Steven Adams is better than Paul George, I mean, that is ludicrous. There are tiers of NBA players. Right. Superstars, stars, role-playing starters, role-playing reserves. And one of the lower levels might have a better game. He might have a better month. He might have a better playoff series. But they're not better players than the guys in the levels above them. Steven Adams is a role player. 10 to 14 points a game, 8-9 rebounds, whether he's your first option or fourth option. That's what he does. He plays off stars. He's only getting his because the defense is paying attention to Russell, George, and Melo.
That makes a lot of sense.
Period.
And I rarely agree with Chris Broussard on NBA topics, but I'm with you on this one. Whitlock, you're insane. We're forgetting.
Look,
Paul
you
George.
even got Pacers colors
Yes,
on.
he does. It's a conspiracy. Paul George, at 22 and 23 years old, took the Pacers to the Eastern Conference Finals back-to-back years against LeBron. Okay, and I'm in agreement. Steven Adams, a great role player. We're forgetting here, guys. Paul George on the open market. Cowherd, you mentioned the open market. He's going to be coveted by everybody,
including
nobody
LeBron.
here is backing up the Brinks for Steven Adams. Okay,
He's already got paid $100 million.
And nobody's clamoring to get him anyway.
Anymore.
But 4 years, $25 million a year.
How about to defend Whitlock?
No, I don't need defense. Steven Adams is a better player than Paul George.
He's averaging 14 a game.
If they built more of the offense and gave him more of an opportunity, the guy is a guy that can put up 18 points a game, in my opinion, and could be 10 rebounds. He plays tremendous defense. He's a rim protector. I'm telling you, if the team was run properly, it would be Westbrook and Steven Adams.
Okay, I'm not going to. I'm not going to defend you. Could I make the argument that Paul George in big spots, fourth quarter, late, has been a disappointment, and I like it.
I agree.
Is that fair?
He hasn't hit a big
major
0 for 15 or something like that. Big
major.
He's not a superstar, but he's a star. He's a legitimate all-star. He won't be this year.
Let me ask you this point, Chris. Let me ask you this point. Let's say he is a star. What do you think Paul George thinks of himself? He thinks he's a superstar.
Okay, that's fine.
And again, that's part of the problem. Again, he wants the ball at the end of the games, even though he can't make the shot. He wants to be the superstar and lead dog on the team, even though that's not really who he is. Steven Adams could be a hell of a number 2 because he wouldn't be trying to be number 1.5 or wouldn't be trying. He's a better complementary player for Russell Westbrook and a team that's constructed properly than Paul George.
At best, Steven Adams is a number 3. If you're a good team, he's at – look, 2 years ago when he had Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, and he was legit maybe the number 3. I guess you had Serge Ibaka, too.
Yeah, he was
good. But that's when Adams came out. Yeah. Oh, he's playing well. But he played well because of the other 2 stars. Last year, his numbers improved, but everybody was disappointed. What happened to Steven Adams? I expected more from him because he was the number 2 last year. The number 2 got to give me more than 12 points.
But he's limited. He's limited offensively.
Limited.
Pick and roll, he's money. You can't dump the ball down to him 10 times a game and expect buckets.
You can't.
He doesn't have an offensive skill set. He's not Elijah One. He's not Ewing. He's not anywhere near that class.
He's not Dwight Howard as far as dumping it into him. He's not. He's not.
I don't think you won this one.
No. I'm gonna say it. I don't care.
I think this is get out.
He ain't got the complexion for the connection.
No, come on, man.
If this was a brother, you would see what I'm talking about.
I think this is get out, and Kevin Pritchard is somehow in you.
Mind control.
Yes.
To Houston, where Chris Paul put up a season-high 31 to help lead the Rockets over the Hornets last night. Houston now, NBA's best record, 22-4. And while some people thought there could be growing pains with Paul joining the beard, the team's 12-0 when Paul plays, including winning 11 straight. Whitlock, you surprised that CP3 has fit in so well with James Harden's Rockets?
Maybe a little, but if I'm surprised, it's because a bad narrative got started with Chris Paul. He can't get to the Western Conference Championships. And I think as we get further and further away from his Clippers years, people are going to start to realize, well, that was Doc Rivers. It wasn't Chris Paul. And so Chris Paul has always been a very well-respected player in the league. Everybody thinks he plays an intelligent brand of basketball. A lot of people see him as like Isaiah Thomas, the old school Isaiah Thomas.
Yep.
He just needed the right situation. I think that will probably be the new narrative.
I thought it was going to flourish, and I went back to an old rule I believe to be true about my business and a lot of businesses. When in doubt, hire smart. Smart people have more self-awareness. They'll figure it out. My feeling on this was Chris Paul's one of the smartest NBA players. He's best friends with LeBron, as smart as they come. And James Harden, I thought last year, proved that he wasn't just a scorer. He could elevate others, showed me great self-awareness, the kind of stuff we wish Melo had. And I just kind of thought to myself, Daryl Morey's smart, D'Antoni's system smart, Chris Paul's smart, Harden's smart. These dudes are going to figure it out. And I think to a large degree, the other thing you pointed out that I think is real is there was always this, Chris Paul's the problem with the Clippers. The more they fall and Houston gets elevated, that's a real thing for the next several years for Chris Paul.
Yeah, I was wrong on this. I didn't think it'd be a disaster like my man McIntyre, but I didn't think it'd be like what it is. I mean, 12-0, and I'm giving them right now a 30 to 35% chance of beating the Warriors. And that may increase over the course of the season, but I thought Chris had made the biggest mistake of his career because I thought he'd become a role player in Houston, his numbers would be pedestrian, and he wouldn't get a max contract next year. Now, either the Rockets or somebody else is going to give him a max. And D'Antoni deserves a lot of credit because his offense, certain point guards, types of point guards excel in his offense. I do not believe Steve Nash would have been a two-time MVP if he had not played for Mike D'Antoni.
Agree.
Harden was elevated, as great as he was already, elevated in this system. And now you see, I mean, if Chris Paul played in this system for years, there's no telling what he'd do. We haven't seen two guys get these numbers of assists since Magic Johnson and Norm Nixon in the early 80s.
Chris, before you, McIntyre, is this the Suns all over again, though? Is this what Steve Nash and the Suns, is it just a repeat of that?
That's a good question because D'Antoni's lack of attention to detail, if you look at when he was in Phoenix, great teams, they would always play the Spurs in the playoffs, it seemed. And it would be in crunch time, a bad rotation, a missed assignment, players getting off the bench during a scuffle and getting suspended. Something, lack of execution, that little attention to detail is huge in the playoffs. And then Harden and Chris have not actually been the best players in the clutch either. So there's some question marks, but I think they'll answer them this year.
Very valid points. I was wrong so far, but again, guys,
very
it's
wrong.
12.
Not just wrong, very wrong.
Chris, it's 12 games. We know D'Antoni's a great regular season coach. Lights out, right? What happens in the postseason? And you just said a couple of the things. Chris Paul, last year, first round, they lost to the Jazz, Game 7 at home. Okay, we can blame Doc Rivers all we want, and I think Blake Griffin was out, but Chris Paul's got to win that game.
He didn't deliver in that game.
And James Harden, Game 6, I can't get over that loss to the Spurs.
That was brutal.
Just didn't show up, a complete no-show. And that's why I'm saying, hey, they might win 60 games this regular season. That's great. What's going to happen in the postseason? It's a wait and see with me for D'Antoni, who I like a lot, but he's never shown it, Chris, as you said, in the postseason.
Well, one of your guys' points is the NBA really has always been two leagues. It's the regular season and the postseason. Yeah. And, like, for instance, when you win a title, Warriors, Anybody shocked their lethargy, their apathy this year? No, this is what happens. Before you win a title, those Bull teams with Derrick Rose, oh, they're all keyed up, the big three. Then you win and you sort of dovetail and you kind of wait for the postseason. The argument you make is one that I wonder. This coach, these players, are they the Suns? Which, by the way, when you put heat on them, you know, they're not.
Tighter
D'Antoni's
game,
teams are finesse teams. The playoffs are even officiated differently.
Don't you? The Warriors are a finesse team at this point. The league has kind of gone finesse. I will say this, and I'm with you. We do have to wait and see. But this team plays defense. They're 6th in the league, or tied for 5th in defensive efficiency. P.J. Tucker, Ba Amute, Chris Paul, Trevor Ariza, Capella can protect the rim. Like, they're different from those Phoenix teams that just kind of outscored you. They do play defense.
You add a Steven Adams to this Houston team.
Boy, there it is.